Hey guys, Mr. Yisley here. So we're on to lesson number 5 in chapter 4, which is all about writing linear function. In lesson number 5, we're going to start a new concept known as writing equations in point-slope form. And so as you should have learned from your definition, point-slope form looks like this. Y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. And this is simply a way to use a point and the slope in order to get into slope-intercept form eventually. So it's called point-slope form because all we need to do this is we need to know one point on the line and the slope in order to figure this out and to put it into that form. So when it comes to writing, in lesson number 5, all we're going to talk about is the process. So when it comes to writing equations in this point-slope form, right, and this says slope-intercept form, this should say point-slope form, excuse me, point-slope form, right? The first thing we need to do is we need to identify the slope, right? So we need to identify the slope here. Right? Now, sometimes they may not tell us the slope. We may not have the graph to look at and figure out the slope, but they may give us 2 points. And if that's the case, then we're going to have to use the slope formula. So again, remember that the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, you will not always have to use that. Sometimes they'll just tell you the slope, or sometimes you might have a graph where you can just kind of count over and figure out the rise over run by looking at it. All right? But sometimes all they're going to give us is 2 points, and when that happens, we then have to put it into slope formula. The next thing we need to do after that is we need to identify a point on the line. All right? They may give you an ordered pair. You may have to go look at the graph and find one. All right? Something along those lines, but we need at least 1 point. All right? 1 point from that graph, whether it's given to us or we look at the graph and figure out an exact point. Right? The third thing we do is then we go in and we plug that information into the point-slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Right? And then the last thing we want to do after that is simplify it if necessary. The only time we're going to really simplify this on the whole is if they ask us, right, to get to slope-intercept. Right? If they ask us to get to the slope-intercept form, which you already know, right? But the way we do that is we simply would solve this down. We would multiply m times each one of those things, and then we would solve it down. We would move this y1 over through addition or subtraction based on what it is, right? And we'll show you how to do that. But most of the time, all we're going to have to do is just put it into the point-slope form. But occasionally, they are going to ask us to simplify it down as well. All right, so that's the process that we're going to be working on in this next section in lesson number 6. So if you have any additional questions, please let me know. But otherwise, continue on to lesson 6 to try this out with some examples.